something weird happening, and they'll have to deal with it for a minute. So I think we're live. I think we're live right now. But I need to double check and make sure that that's accurate. It says we're streaming. It says we're live. Welcome to new technology.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
F it. We'll do it live.
Still says the public is seeing nothing. So I don't know what the delay is on this, but hopefully they should be getting something any second now.
Dan, this happens to me every time. Let me do Fantasy NBA tonight on my own. Like, I stare at the camera and I just kind of waffle around like, oh, maybe we're starting. Oh, who knows? Oh, yeah, we're live. Oh, no, we're not live. Oh, wait, the sound's on. Oh, wait, no, the sound's not on.
It doesn't say that we're live, even though the, oh, now it's saying that we lost connection with the encoder. I mean, this is like, what's happening here, YouTube? We're trying so hard to make this thing work. We're trying so hard. And yet, nothing's coming up. I don't know what I got to do to make this thing start. I thought I hit the button for it to go. Let's see.
It's,
Hey, there we go. Are we up?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're live.
I see.
Okay. So I need to hit a button now to do a transition. All right. Okay. So it's running about a minute behind. That's the buffer because I'm running so many pieces of software at the same time. That's outstanding. Wunderbar. Wunderbar.
What does that mean, Dan?
I don't know.
Wunderbar. Wunderbar.
I have no idea. Let's stop this preview. Let's make sure that other people are seeing it right. Okay, so before I actually get into anything for the show, I just want to see if anybody's actually getting the show.
The chat room says we're live, but we're freezing up, and...
Yeah, I think my computer just can't handle this many things running at the same time, is the only way I can think that this would happen. I wonder if I could possibly turn down the stream rate. Might that do the trick? Let's see what we can do here. Output. Maybe I can lower the bit rate. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Don't be trying to sell me no Bitcoin, Dan.
I'm going to lower the bit rate to something less high. Let's apply that and see if it does anything.
Sounds like the sound is pretty good, though.
I wonder if I should have lowered our resolution also. But it's too late. We're going now. Sound is on, says Pierre. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to try to go live to see if the transition worked, but I'm not sure that it did.
Look at you with your fancy graphics. Oh,
can you see it? Can you see it now?
Look at that.
You can see it.
I can see it. It looks great.
Okay. Well, the problem is
I mean, the show is obviously off to a rocky start.
Yeah, it's a little glitchy. It's a little glitchy.
It's a tiny bit glitchy, and you know, I think we've lost some viewers. It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, we're trying over here. Let me see if I can go to this. Maybe I can turn off some of the things that are using up data. I want to try to make this thing work, but there's just so many things running on my machine that I honestly don't know if all of these things are going to work simultaneously. So I'm closing down as many things as humanly possible. I just honestly I don't know. I don't know that this is gonna work right today, or until I get a better computer.
Hey, you know what? The sound I think is fine. If Pierre has been weighing in on the sound, if he could say if the sound is working, we might just deal with the video glitch and roll with the sound going, and then who knows? Maybe the video will catch up at some point. Probably not.
I'm not enthusiastic about that possibility. Let's see. Output resolution. I mean, I honestly don't see anything in the settings that should make this screwy. I just, I've got...
But the chat room does like the new setup.
All right, well, that's something.
We're getting thumbs. Apparently, this is our best show ever. If you just make us kind of minimize the imagery of us and glitch us out a little bit, and then put some fancy graphics up, and everybody's like, yeah, Yeah.
I think it's my computer. I really think. It says encoding overloaded. Consider turning down
We have
video
5
settings.
thumbs up right now, Dan.
Or using a
5.
faster encoding preset. I don't know what that means. Scott Douglas, where are you? Come save us, Scott. Scott!
Somewhere Scott Douglas is rolling over on the ground like Homer Simpson when he does that little spinny circle thing. Yes, that's the one.
Oh, boy. So somewhere in my output settings, I'm going to have to figure out how to turn this stuff down. I don't know which of these things actually controls that.
I want to know from the chat room, how much fun are you having watching Besbris, like, kind of just like panic right now? Like, it's not working. It's not working.
Well, damn it. All right. Well, I'm going to get with the. Go ahead.
I think it's working. The audio, I think, is working.
Yeah. So the video is getting destroyed by our connection somewhere along the way. I don't know precisely how to fix that on the fly. I'm going to go to a page called Ingestion Settings and see if that would do anything. It will not.
Ben's now saying free premium memberships for everybody. Dan, you're cutting into our profit margin.
I know. I'm dying here. What?
And
yeah,
we're frozen in time like Encino Man says C-Funk Beans. That's a great Encino Man reference. And a great movie. Really summed up our time.
Oh, yeah, I can't change settings right now because we've already gone live. And if I end it, then I think it just ends the stream and we'd have to start the whole thing all over again. So we're locked into this madness.
You know what? I think the video's fine, Dan.
All right, good enough.
People just want to hear our sweet, sultry voices.
Okay, so next time I will talk to our good buddy Scott Douglas, who's been a saint in teaching me how to get this stuff set up. And he's going to tell me how to turn everything down to a bare minimum until I win my fantasy leagues and buy a brand new computer, at which point we're ratcheting this mother up back to full tilt again. But, I mean, they can see our pretty faces and they can see the cool graphics, right? They just don't happen to be moving at all.
I think this is just as good as the real thing.
All right, well, screw it. I'm going to minimize this window. I'm going to do a show looking at
what y'all are witnessing right now is when something doesn't work, Dan gets really upset. This is not angry Dan. This is perplexed Dan.
It's perplexed.
Right
I'm
here.
fully perplexed. I got everything. Everything was going so beautifully. I got you in the screen.
You know what happens every
well.
now and then. Like we just change on the video. It's kind of cool. I like this. I think we should stick with this.
It's just totally frozen. Oh, farts. Okay, well, there isn't anything else I can do, really, because it's just going to be them looking at our graphic and then our frozen faces. But as long as they can hear us, I guess that's okay, right? Like, that's what it really comes down to at this point.
Yeah, I don't think they're here for the visuals, Dan.
No. Let me get back to the top of the chat room and make sure I'm going to cut and paste all the questions into a notepad document just in case my computer freezes at some point during this endeavor. There is a possibility, by the way, that the recorded version of this show is going to be a total mess, too. Because if my computer is buffering like this, there might just not be a recorded version that goes out, and everybody will have to watch the frozen one. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Adobe Audition is hanging in there. All right. Pray for Mojo. Roberto says the frozen shot looks good. We're just going to roll with it. All right. Screw it. We're going to roll with it. I'm going to just start the show at this point since everybody's watched this nonsense. No pre-show BS. That was the pre-show BS. Brew, you ready to do this thing?
I've been ready for 10 minutes now, Dan.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm going to zoom in real tight on my Adobe Audition and see if this actually works. Tell you what, guys, we're not going to start the show at this exact moment. I'm going to play Adobe Audition back to make sure it's actually recording. So sit tight for just 1 second. I'm turning the audio off for this show. You'll just watch our frozen faces. Don't worry. We'll be back in 15 seconds. It actually worked in an unbelievable twist. Edition is recording.
I'm telling you, Dan, we're good. We're good to go, man.
All right, Wolf Blitzer has been turned off. That means it's time to do a show. Brew, we're counting it down in 5, 4. Oh, I can't do the silent countdown because no one can see it. 2, 1. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today live, frozen on YouTube, but still, okay, good enough. I'm Dan Besbris, and I am joined on Fridays, as always, by El Arquitecto, Aaron Bruski, in his fancy new setup. We got also 1.2.
We're on 1.2. 2.0 will be this summer, and then 3.0. But, like a big part of it's multimedia, and it's just crazy, man. You couldn't even think of doing this 3 years ago. So very thankful for Scott Douglas, and thankful to have this conversation with you. We got a lot of stuff going on in the world of fantasy. I noticed a lot of angst out there, with all the sit-start stuff and the silly season, and we have talked about that ad nauseum. But I'm kind of interested to see what people have for questions and how we wrap this year up. I don't know about your teams, but, all of our guys have had just incredible boosts lately, notwithstanding some big names like Steph, but that stuff hit last week. So it's not exactly new, but, we've seen big games from James Johnson. We've seen big games from Taurean Prince. The Prince has slowed down a little bit. Nikola Mirotic has picked it back up, but a lot of guys that we have on teams have been a lot better lately, and so that's been nice.
That is nice, yeah, and certainly on the Steph front, it seems like he'll be back tonight, so at least there's that, if it hasn't completely knocked you out of the postseason already. But I don't want to go down that road, Brew. We did this once before, and I made Aaron sad, and I don't want to do that today. Let's get into all the juicy stuff almost immediately. First things first, you're listening to Fantasy NBA Today. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at HoopBallFantasy. I am at Dan Besbris, and he is at Aaron Bruski in the Twitter sphere. If you have a moment and you're watching us live on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button and subscribe to our YouTube page. Please, heaven, subscribe to the YouTube page. We need that now more than ever, especially since YouTube changed their terms of service. If you're checking out things at Hoopball, go to the Hoopball forums. Those are always kicking. I had a bunch of posts that I saw come in overnight. That's always fun to wake up to. And check out our team coverage. Continues to expand here in the waning months of the 2017-2018 season. You can find all of those Twitter accounts by following the main channel at Hoopball Tweets. They retweet a lot of stuff from those other channels as well. Brew, as usual, I've got my plan here. I've got my list of things to talk about. We got a chat room that's suddenly kicking, although everybody decided to kind of show up late, which is good because it took me a while to figure out how to get this live video going. They say the video is going now, by the way, which is also exciting. Are you ready for me to hit you with Dan's Fun Friday list?
Not if you're calling it that, but sure, why not?
Well, it's not that fun because the first thing on the list is that Giannis Antetokounmpo turned an ankle and he is out already or is he doubtful? I think he's out.
He's out for tonight's game.
And I think we all kind of saw that coming. When a guy turns an ankle, the only thing you pray for in that moment is please let him play through this tonight because it always gets worse the next day. And you can kind of grade the ankle sprains on that series of, well, he played through it, there's going to be some swelling, so probably questionable for the next one, straight to the locker room, lifted off the floor, that kind of thing. That's generally not a great sign. That's like the Reggie Jackson type ankle thing. And then there's the Giannis one, which seemed to fall somewhere in between, and that is he hurt it, he made it to the locker room under his own power, but never came back to the ball game. So you knew if he wasn't playing that day, the swelling was going to knock him out. My question for you, Brew, is What about the upcoming stretch here for the Bucks? They actually have a really difficult series of games upcoming that a lot of them they're not going to stand much of a chance in without Giannis on the floor. How much can they push him? That cushion over Detroit is 5.5 games. That's pretty good at this time of the season, but it's not totally locked up yet.
I think that they're a pretty forward-looking organization, and they will do the math on the 5.5 games, and they're going to realize that as long as they don't go like 2-8, they'll be fine. So what that means, and actually it wouldn't be 2-8; they have 11 games left. That I think they're going to play it safe here. Now, I'm not really thinking this is a bad ankle sprain for Giannis. What I am thinking though is after tonight's game, obviously, Sunday at home against San Antonio. I kind of like his odds of playing against them. And I also don't think that, when you're flying to Chicago, for a game, like it's only 2 hours away. It's kind of one of those things like, why send the guy? Why put him on a flight, get him cramped up. And even though it's a short flight, this to me, it really seems like they could have him come back, play against the Spurs. And then they head out on the road. They got 4 games on the road all next week. This will be a pretty clear-cut decision for owners, because if it's bad at all and they decide not to send him on the road, that would indicate 4 games off. But I really doubt that. I think he'll come back and play, fairly soon. And as far as the playoff race goes, though, I mean, they got nothing to play for. So if there is anything more than what I think it is, then they're going to sit the guy.
Well, why don't we go from Giannis to Steph, as long as we're talking about top-of-the-line injuries. It sounds like he's back, most likely, for this evening's contest for Golden State. What does that mean for the fully random list of players that ended up seeing significant minutes? I'm seeing a lot of anti-Quinn Cook here for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn Cook, I don't think you can ride him at all. I wouldn't use him even in a DFS format. Steph, he's going to be wearing low-cut sneakers. To me, one of the many reasons that absence was so painful is I didn't think he was that hurt, and this was just scheduled rest. They looked and they said, let's not take any chances. You need rest anyway, and so here you go. Have a week, and let's announce it on a Tuesday. So, yeah, I wouldn't use any of those other guys. I mean, you could take a gamble on somebody like Nick Young. I just don't see it. Once you have Steph back into the fold, he's probably going to have a huge game in this one, and guessing who the other beneficiary is going to be tough.
What about the forward situation in Golden State? Jordan Bell, Kevon Looney, anything there with Durant and Dre both out?
Yeah, I wish that they had a 4th game this week from a weekly league perspective, because I would have taken a chance on Kevin Looney. He was on a lot of my waiver wire lists and just kind of tucked down, pretty far. Jordan Bell with a little bit of a minute limit. I don't think they're cutting Jordan Bell loose anytime soon. Even if he was healthy, I feel like they don't want him out there, for whatever reason, playing 30 minutes per game. And I think it's one of those coach issues where they just don't want to give him the wrong idea, like, hey, you can go out there and play, this wild. He plays wild. That's how he gets all those steals.
But man, it's so tantalizing with Isaac, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh yeah, his foot hurts again. I'm happy that I'm not happy that he's injured. I'm happy that he's not having a breakout season right now, because it's going to keep his ADP within a reasonable range next year. The hype machine will be out for him next year, and I don't know if they'll make him overly expensive. We'll see. Just an amazing amount of upside for him, and they have no reason right now to push him through injury. And when you get to this stage of the season too, what is let's say he played 10 games. What is 10 games for Jonathan Isaac going to do that 5 games won't do? It sucks. You want these players to get as many minutes as possible, but the sample size now is so small that it really doesn't matter. If you're tanking like the Magic are, and you're also trying to protect him from injury, I don't know that he can be a safe play. I think that you just kind of got to, if he's healthy and on your wire, available for the next game, then I think you pick him up, and then it's not even a lock that you play him,
but you're looking at those money counting stats and saying, yeah, this is something that in 20 minutes he could go get you 3 or 4 of them.
You know what I've done here is I'm so far out in front in my keeper league that I just picked him up before the roster deadline, and I'm just gonna sit on Jonathan Isaac, and I sort of don't care what he does the rest of this year. Any games I get out of this season is just gravy.
Yeah, he is, man. I mean, he's got way more upside than Aaron Gordon. And here's another thing. I don't think that the Magic are sold on Gordon or want to pay him, which is kind of a phenomenal thing to hear somebody say, because this is a losing franchise that needs to keep as many players as possible. Gordon has struggled with defense, and he's done what a lot of players do when they come in the league, kind of like Willie Cauley-Stein, is they don't want to be known as defenders, so then they start to develop perimeter games and dribbling and shooting and all this stuff. And his great skill is his athleticism, his ability to fly around, and it's just not happening. And Isaac would be the beneficiary if Gordon does end up moving on. But Isaac can do it all. He can defend. He can fly around. His offensive game is already developed enough to where I don't think that he has any weird hang up where he's got to be an offensive player. It's a weird thing, man. At all levels of the game, big men that can't shoot want to shoot threes, and little guys want to get into the lane and post up other guards. People kind of want to do what they are told they can't do. Isaac doesn't have that problem. He's going to be great next year.
Yeah, pretty exciting young player. How about a Willie Hernan-Gomez trip on today's show? I think we kind of have to. I mean, Dwight Howard got suspended, and obviously that played a big role, but he's starting to do a little something. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's the whole, shutdown scenario that we've been talking about, and it's funny, too. So Clifford goes to New York and bombs on Hernan-Gomez in the media. And when I say bombs on him, he was just honest. Look, your defense sucks. If you're not going to play a lick of defense and you don't have 5 tools, to use a baseball term on the offensive side, we can't play you. And that kind of provides some cover for Jeff Hornacek. Some of the criticism of not playing Hernan-Gomez in New York. I think he was maybe given a little pushback on that because the New York side, New York media, wants to get at Hornacek for not playing Willie Hernan-Gomez, and we wanted to get at Hornacek for not playing Willie Hernan-Gomez. I think that, there's actually still an angle there. You got to play the guy for him to stay in shape, to stay engaged, and they just simply decided he wasn't going to play. Now he's in Charlotte. Sometimes when coaches do this stuff, they are expecting a bounce back out of the player, and they do that maybe even knowing that, look, Dwight's going to get his 16th tech. Cody's all banged up. He's not going to make it to the end of the year. You can time a statement like that to fire a guy up, and then next thing you know, you're putting him in the lineup and you're starting to get Willie Hernan-Gomez-like numbers. If this comes down to Dwight Howard, and I don't think they're going to be running out Howard and Hernan-Gomez lineups anytime soon. But Howard has no reason to play right now, and so you gotta look at Hernan-Gomez as not a player to really own, not really even a player to stash, but be ready. Have him on your watch list and be ready to pick him up. Or if you are looking for stats in his proficient areas, maybe you do stash with the hope that the last 2.5 weeks, you catch lightning in a bottle. Harrison Barnes you can trust as long as you don't get an announcement that he's going to be sitting for whatever reason. This tanking season, I think, is really, I think it's going to, I don't want to say it's going to turn fantasy leagues against head-to-head and against playoff formats, because it probably just won't. But this year might be the first year where people are like, well, what's the point? It doesn't matter. We played all year and it doesn't matter. The 6th place team ended up winning because 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th all had guys sit. And that's so for Dallas, they fall into this group of teams that has this going on, and I don't know. I mean, from game to game, you just have to assess it. So JJ Barea, he's a guy that kind of produces no matter what. I would give him a look. I mean, can't use Nerlens Noel if you're not sure that he's going to get minutes in a given night, because Salah Mejri's getting minutes. And this is the smart tanking teams do this kind of stuff where they rotate a player out of the rotation every night. So killing all of their continuity while not having like this long injury list. It's happening all over the league. It's not good for the league. It's not good for fantasy owners. And I really don't know how to advise you until 4 p.m. at tip-off. And then at that point in time, I can tell you who to start and who to sit.
Our buddy Scott Douglas is tuned into the chat room. What's up, my man? Did you see that we're trying your stuff?
What's up?
Yeah, they're working some kinks out. I think it's actually going right now, so that's sweet. He came in just in time to see it actually functional. I may have some questions for you after this show, Scott. Just telling you right now. The next place on my tanks a lot list. Why don't we go to Chicago? Because we are getting some alterations to the injury news there. Chris Dunn, it sounds like, is on the shelf for quite some time. Zach LaVine out for at least a week, and then they're going to reevaluate him, and he might just get shut down for the rest of the year. And Lauri Markkanen is basically the only piece of good news coming out of the good Chicago Bulls players who aren't playing right now. He said he wants to play in one half of their upcoming back-to-back. That makes me think that he'll be going by next week. So where do you sit with the Bulls? Because your buddy Justin Holiday actually played half a game last time out, but so did everybody else. They went 2017 Brooklyn Nets style on this thing and just gave everybody 26 minutes.
Yeah, they're right up at the top of this list that we were just discussing of tanking teams. I don't feel optimistic that Chris Dunn, I don't think he plays again this year. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with him. As far as Zach LaVine goes, I do think that he's going to have some say in whether or not he returns. So it'll be interesting to see if he doesn't play for the rest of the year. That means that there was actually something wrong with his knee. I think that it's just kind of natural soreness from returning to action and having that kind of night-to-night pounding. And they just want to be extra careful with it, and also tank, which sort of helps everything along. The race for tanking is so tight that these teams actually have to look at this stuff aggressively. But Cameron Payne's going to be great. I think that Denzel Valentine is right on pace. He kind of slowed down after the big game. If there was any question about whether or not he should be owned, which there shouldn't have been, he got picked up, and then he's kind of disappointed since then. But don't worry about that. He's going to be just fine as far as a 12-team asset goes. Markkanen is going to be great. Portis is going to be what he is. I would not look at Holiday for whatever reason. They've decided he's a guy that they can just jerk in and out of the lineup every night. I'm not buying anything that Vonleh did. Felicio, probably use him at your own risk in like a 16-team league. And I think Cameron Payne, though, has some real late season garbage time breakout potential. So he's got to be owned.
Let's go to New York for a little more tanking. The Knicks actually played their starters a little bit in that last ball game. A sign of things to come, or a one-game blip?
Nah, it's just a one-game blip. Not even really sure why they did that. They are aggressively tanking to get out of the middle of the pack and possibly closer to that nice and juicy, say 4 to 6 range. So no, I wouldn't buy that, though. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to sit Enes Kanter unless he's injured or out. Beasley's this classic get stats on a bad team guy, so you got to keep rolling with him. Hardaway, I don't think he's healthy. Like, that would be a player that I would watch for, some sudden announcement that he's not going to play the rest of the season, which might open things up for Trey Burke. Burke is, I think Burke can actually produce if given the opportunity. His shooting percentage is begging for downward regression, and that's, that was the small sample size and showing up and getting red hot real quick. So that might work against him a little bit, but you still got a player that has the organization support. He does look like he's got his game intact. So for whatever reason, however he got here, he has sort of restored what he had, say, prior to Washington and maybe during his early Utah days. Can take a lot more contact than before. So I think if you see the players around him start to disintegrate, a la Tim Hardaway Jr., then Burke would be a guy to grab, and maybe he can get up over the late round hump. But none of them have been able to do that. Not Ntilikina, not Emmanuel Mudiay, and I don't expect that to change at all. I don't think that that team is organized in a way for those two players to have any value. So, other than Kyle O'Quinn, who's just kind of rock solid and does his thing, there's just not a lot to like in New York right now.
Last stop on our tank tour. I know there's plenty of places we could go, but I'm only taking this. This is a 4-stop tour, and that's the Phoenix Suns.
It's painful to talk about these teams.
I know, but we got to do one more, and it's Phoenix, because TJ Warren is hurt, and we don't know what his deal is. Devin Booker's been kind of in and out of the lineup a little bit. It's been a steady dose of Josh Jackson on the wings. And then they played a team with some big guys, and Alex Len got loose for a day. Dragan Bender's been uninspiring. Marquise Chris has been basically the ham and cheese sandwich that we described on earlier episodes of the show. Anybody outside of Josh Jackson that you can kind of keep an eye on with that team? Do any of the big guys look interesting? To me, he's the only one that I'm watching.
I mean, it's easy to pile on and say, like, look at these guys, they're terrible, and think, like, even from a fantasy perspective, like, look at these guys, they're terrible. It's easy to have those thoughts, and then you realize that although they could go like Memphis last night and score like 58 points and lose by 70 or whatever that game was all about.
Brutal.
But typically teams don't do that. Typically they make it up over 70 or 80, and there's stats to be had. And so somebody's got to get the stats here. I just don't know which one you want to bet on. It's the weirdest eclectic combination of players. One thing that has stood out is Elfrid Payton. I think Payton knows he's not a part of their future, and he's been pouting, is my thought there. I don't think you can not start the guy. I mean, he is as well equipped as any of the players there to take, all of the usage up and then spit out some sort of 20-point, 8 rebound, 8 assist type line. You just can't not start the guy, I don't think. Josh Jackson, you got to roll with him, even though he's going to possibly shoot you out of field. If you're sensitive to field goal or free throw percentage, you might look at Josh Jackson and say, hey, not today. But beyond that, we're in such a small sample now for the remaining 10 or so games. If that field goal percentage is impacting your roto situation, that would be kind of surprising. It would be a shock, actually. You got to look at how many points you can gain or lose. And then in a head-to-head league, you just got to decide, what do you want? You're going to get a lot of everything else from Josh Jackson. You got to start the guy. Dragan Bender is like a whack fantasy league Hall of Famer, I think, at least until he gets a coach in a situation that like force him to shoot. His ability to disappear in a game is second to none. I can't trust Marquise Chris. I don't think TJ Warren's coming back. And I'm not optimistic that Devin Booker is going to play a lot for the rest of the year. He's got a lot of mileage. He's taken a lot of hits. He's been pretty banged up. The Suns need to lose. I don't think he needs to prove anything. There's just not a lot of reason to play the guy. I don't trust Alex Len. And, you're going to get Big Sauce returning probably, say, like with 4 games to go or something like that, 5 games to go. And he's going to cut into whatever value Alex Len could have. He himself probably won't be valuable. I wouldn't want to rule it out, but it's just asking a lot for a guy to come back from that long of an injury and be good. I mean, I think you're looking at guys like Shaquille Harrison and thinking maybe he could be the guy that sort of, jumps out of this mix. I wouldn't rule out a Jared Dudley big night. It's a mess, man. Troy Daniels could also be used. I mean, if you need threes, Troy Daniels is probably a really strong pickup.
I think we may have lost Bruski's video on this one. So, Aaron, I don't if things are okay on your end. Try turning off.
I can hear you great.
You can hear me okay. Turn off your webcam, and then I think folks will at least just get your headshot coming through on the video side. See what happens if we just turn your webcam off, and then we'll keep going. All right, there's Aaron's headshot. So we can roll with that for the next little bit. Okay, so that was our tank tour. Why don't we move to something that's a little bit less tanky, and that's the Portland Trailblazers. We've had this weird Mo Harkless surge over the last 2 weeks. Is this a real thing? Is this sustainable? He's been shooting the ball awfully well.
Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting stuff. I would like to come up with some sort of a term for like players that have mental stuff happen, you know, and around here we've talked about this on many shows. We're very accepting of players having mental struggles, issues, etc. So we're not making fun of them by any means. But like, there are players who, for whatever reason, are too hard on themselves, or they get down mentally. It's not physically. This is Mo Harkless. He is, somebody that kind of wears everything on his sleeve. He's really well liked in the locker room. And when he went down, so to speak, when he started struggling, it spiraled. And he actually apologized to his team a couple weeks prior to the breakout, and it really sparked his game. And so you've seen a guy that's flying around sort of like last year's version of Mo Harkless. I think you can use the guy. I think he's good to go now. I didn't know that, seeing him, have a couple good games, and he's been a top 50 guy for the last month. So the time to pick him up is actually past. This is kind of old news here, but seeing the first few games, he was, somebody I wouldn't trust, for fantasy value. And you just don't know. Was it his calf? Was it his, in this case, was it being down mentally? I think there are certain players that are more susceptible to that than others. And from a fantasy perspective, when you see like a guy just disappear, and, especially if it's in a small town where you don't have a lot of injury reporting, it's really hard to gauge. And so I would like to try to somehow figure out a way to quantify that, because I think that would help fantasy owners in the long run. Is if we do know that a player is up and down for whatever reason, that might help us inform our pickup decisions.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I felt like when he put together a few good games, my inclination was to say, bah. But yeah, it's been a couple weeks now, and things are starting to shape up a little bit. What's going on with Hassan Whiteside and Dwayne Wade? Is Miami just content to say we're going to be the 7 or 8 seed and we want these guys ready for the playoffs?
I think so. I think, especially when they're playing well without Hassan Whiteside, and that's been on the tip of their tongue all year long. He is kind of batted that narrative back every time they come up against a team that has a really big or an athletic big that starts to beat them up on the glass. And whenever a team has good penetrators and Kelly Olynyk can't be that weak side protector that Hassan Whiteside is, that narrative gets batted back. But as we've seen, Kelly Olynyk's been great. Hoop ball 6 are getting it done, and he has sort of given the Heat the cover they need to really rest up Hassan Whiteside. They're definitely going to need him for the playoffs. I would imagine something like 5 games before the end of the season, or maybe like the Heat. Let's see here. They have how many games left? They have 10 games left. I would say, if I'm the Heat, a real great way to target that would be to try to get him back in action 2 games from now for 5 games, and then start, layer some time off after that. Like give him 1 or 2 of those remaining 3 games off, so he gets into the playoffs nice and fresh. But you don't want to let him sit too long, because then he's going to get slow, out of shape, and you really want him at the top of his game. So I'm kind of thinking like 2 to 3 games from now will be when he returns.
Let's go to Brooklyn now with a weird guard battle that's developing. They decided to move Spencer Dinwiddie to the bench. He's been actually more efficient at the second unit, but obviously the number of opportunities has come down a little bit. Karis LeVert is healthy. He's playing well, although still inefficient at times. D'Angelo Russell runs into the same kind of issues. And then Alan Crabb has actually been oddly solid for them after kind of an up-and-down first, 3.5 months. How does the final 2.5, 3 weeks of the season shake out for those four guys on the Brooklyn backcourt?
I think you kind of got to stick with your season-long, or not season-long, but your sort of longer-term outlooks for each of these players. Dinwiddie's shooting has definitely kept his ranking down, but it's actually slowly improving, and I think that he's going to be in the midst of a regression here real soon. Watching D'Angelo Russell play is like watching somebody's scratch their nails on a chalkboard. I cannot imagine that holds up. And for Dinwiddie, I think that he has breakout potential over these next few weeks. You just don't kind of keep a player like that down. I forget who it was that was pointing out some things on film. Compared him to James Harden. In terms of his ability to control the dribble and sort of set up his man, and I think you guys have heard me say that a few times. It's like Dinwiddie's out there throwing darts. He can just sort of pick and choose what he wants to do on the floor. He can't finish, and he can't, kind of throttle it back in at times. When you've seen him have these 16, 18 shot games where he's 4 for 16 or something like that. He can't bring it back sometimes. I think he's also a guy that, speaking of mental struggles, I think that he is somebody that, has gotten a little taste of the good stuff. And now that you have a player back in D'Angelo Russell who's not as good as him, not even in the same ballpark as good as him, and is getting opportunities because of what he cost and what his name is, it's really causing Spencer to struggle a bit. Because in his mind, I think he's like, this is my team. We're good when I'm on the floor. And look at this joker out here doing all this dumb stuff. And yeah, he's putting up big numbers, but we all know that they're crap. I think he's struggling with that a little bit. So the cream always rises to the top in these situations. And I don't think the Nets want to let Spencer Dinwiddie end this season on a slow note. I think that you're going to see a flip-flop between him and D'Angelo Russell. And then Karis LeVert is just going to do what Karis LeVert's done all year. He's just going to be that sort of lower tier option that you can't get overly excited about. But, he's got that upside in the event that if D'Angelo Russell's knee acts up or he struggles to the point where he's got to get benched, there will be the potential for an injury next to his name that would give the cover, for the Nets to say, all right, hey, we've seen enough. We don't want to kill your market value, but let's have you take, the next couple weeks off for whatever, a back injury or something. And then you would have, full Spencer Dinwiddie. And I think at that point, Karis LeVert at 27, 28 minutes per game could get real good.
All right, last stop on our Dan's list now. We've finished up the tanking tour, and we're going to the what moment of the first half of the show? Costa Kufas. What?
I'm glad you brought up the Kings.
Costa Kufas.
It's been a rough 24 hours here in Sacramento, man.
Yeah, you guys have some actual real life emotional stuff going on up there too. But Costa Kufas, I say.
Yeah. You can't trust Costa Kufas in a fantasy league. He's not even that valuable to begin with. But yeah, it's look, I don't think Zach Randolph is going to get a lot of minutes for the rest of the year. And I'm glad that you're now on my betting plan, Dan.
I was even before I knew he was sitting that ball game out. The tanking teams on the road have been particularly awful. And so I kind of liked this, the Hawks accidentally won in Utah line of thinking on that game, and it just felt like there was no way that the Atlanta front office was going to let them win in Sacramento again.
Well, Yeah, they yanked, Prince in this one. So I mean, there's the tankers, there's the shameless tankers, and the Hawks are definitely at the top of that list.
That was like 100% of my thing. And then when you texted me to say Zebo's out, I was like, all right, sweet, this one's this one's golden.
Yeah, I mean, night and day different team with Zebo in or out of the lineup. Yeah, no, I think that you're going to see, the rotation alone should keep folks off of Costa Koufos. If Zebo plays, then Costa Koufos really can't be that great. I mean, outside of outlier performances, Willie Cauley-Stein is, a potential rest risk for the rest of the season. Scal has been pretty banged up. And I don't know, man. With what's going on in Sacramento, this has nothing to do with fantasy, but I'm very proud of the Kings. They take a lot of crap out there, especially from me and I guess everybody. But to see Vivek get out there, Vivek has taken more crap, taken more hits, I should say, because crap implies that it's not deserved. He's taken more hits than a lot of NBA owners. And he's definitely on the front lines of, very, inclusive and progressive thinking. And to see him get the players and get the front office and get everybody out there and make the kind of statement that he made, which you can find on social media or, it's been all over CNN today. You can there are a lot of teams in sports that have not done what he just went out there and did. And the community's hurting, man. The black community is really hurting right now. I go to a church that's about 75% black, and the grace that they showed last night as they prayed for the policemen, they prayed for the police, they prayed for the police chief who's active in that same exact church. The way that the pain and the tears in their eyes, but their belief that the right thing to do in this situation is to bring everybody together. And that's what Sacramento has been all about. As long as I've lived here, it's a community that really does want to do the right thing. And the police officers that I know and the sheriff's officers that I know, they're good people. And I think that it's an overall climate that needs to be addressed in this country, where I'm not sure if in another neighborhood that it would have been handled that way. And just the fact that I'm not sure of that speaks to the problems that we have, and
wow,
the overall amount of healing that needs to occur in all of these neighborhoods to get people to a point where you're not chasing a kid into a neighborhood because there was potential, cars being broken into, and your thought, and I've watched the video as a police officer, is I could get shot right now. And watching the video, there's no way that you could have ascertained that that was a gun. At the same time, you don't know who this person is, why they're back there in this backyard. Could they go into the house? I mean, these police officers have a lot going through their mind. But the fact that this is the environment that we are in, it requires a lot of thought. And you can't help but think that getting guns off the streets and turning our country into an example of, other countries like England, like Australia, like Japan, that have taken guns off the street and really reduced the threat. Like your threat level goes way down in that situation. And the black community has had this happen so many times that you just see them, on stage, praying and crying at the same time. It's just heartbreaking. And to see Kings owner Vivek Ranadive go out there and really speak to that, it's phenomenal. And you don't see it in sports. And I had to take 3 seconds or 5 minutes, whatever it's been here, and really point that out and thank him and everybody in Sacramento for pulling together.
Yeah. For sure, and I know it's a very different beast, but I thought it was a pretty cool juxtaposition to see that going on in the NBA, while at the same time Major League Baseball executives are pushing to not have to pay minor leaguers minimum wage. I mean, it's like, I know it's a very different thing, but one feels very forward thinking and the other feels very backward thinking. So get your act together, baseball. Frickin' baseball. Let's take some questions. Let's move on. Let's get back into the sports side of things. Obviously, crazy moving stuff. And Brew, I know you're right on the ground floor. While trying to get all this video stuff coordinated at the same time, I've been cutting and pasting things into a notepad document, but I haven't had the time to go through and eliminate the things that are not questions. So you guys will have to bear with me here as I try to sort through the questions from the non. I'm going to throw the first one to Bruski, and I'm going to begin sorting. We'll see how
this is the green light for me to ramble.
This is, well, honestly, it's just a green light for you to be aware that when you're done with a sentence, I'm probably just going to ask you the next question and not know what you said. Yay!
I like this.
I'm doing a lot of stuff at the same time on this one. Do you have any hot ads for the weekend? That was a good one to start with. That'll give you a time to sit on it a little bit. Anybody that's popping up for you?
No.
Damn it.
I mean, these open-ended questions are always tough. I don't know that Delon Wright's gotten enough love. I think that he is somebody that could have a huge finish. So if he's available, he shouldn't be. Who else am I looking at right now? That's a great question. I mean, Harkless is a great ad. I don't think that he's been owned in enough leagues. What else would I say here? What's say me?
Well, let me throw this one to you while you think about the other one. What do you do with Toronto Raptors next week? Because they have the weird 2-gamer in the middle of a fantasy playoff.
I mean, you can't use most of them. And I understand why that would maybe give some people or give folks some pause on the Delon Wright side, a lower end guy. But, you got to look a little bit long term there and look at the bigger picture with something like that. If you are in a fight for your life in a 2-game week, I think you can drop those guys. And I hate having all these caveats because it's like, yeah, duh, you're in a fight for your life. Drop the guy that's getting you, top 150 production. So, yeah, I mean, man, even like Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, if you sit those guys, you're buying them like 8 days off if you're the Raptors. And nobody seems threatening in the East. Definitely not from a number 1 seed perspective, but like Boston with Kyrie Irving's injury. I mean, like you got to have big old question marks there. Cleveland, they look like crap. The Sixers are Rashawn Holmes away from being competitive, in my opinion. But that would be the next team up as far as a threat. I think with Toronto, they really start looking long term, not just for the first couple rounds, but like, hey, we need these guys healthy for the finals. I would be shocked if they're not thinking like that. So I think it's a tough week no matter who you own with Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely. Giannis Nikolaev, I learned how to pronounce that one other time, just says, I'm already in the semis. Thanks to Hoop. All I can say is thanks for the season and many great pieces of advice being given here and on Twitter. You are very welcome, my good man. Those are always fun posts to get. Do we have any idea, Brew? I know you put a timeline on the Hassan Whiteside thing. Do you know when we might see guys like a Dwight Howard maybe on the Charlotte side? Are we within a week? Well, how long did you think that was before Willie maybe steps into a bigger role?
I think that you're looking probably, I think like the last 6 games of the season, like, and we're just guessing at this point, but like, that's typically how this stuff works. I'll put it to you like this. The last 2 games of the season, we've seen, historically, like I remember way back in the day, Patty Mills went for like 34, 2 games in a row, something like that. And that at the time, he was like an 11th man, but you just knew that was going to happen. To the 2-game mark is just all bets are off. That 3 to 6 game mark prior to the end of the season is still very hot for garbage time, tanking season, silly season pickups. So that, I think, if we're talking odds on a Hernan Gomez being worthwhile, I think you're looking at like a 30-40% chance.
I like it.
It's good odds.
Yeah, that's not bad. A couple of people thanked me for that day-by-day thing for streaming. You are very welcome. That'll probably be a full season tool available for premium subscribers next year. I think we can throw that out there as well. It's been wildly helpful on my own side also as I get ready for a playoff week. Yes, this is a bye in my stupid league that goes all the way to the end of the year. And with that in mind, the next question on the sheet is, Brew, anything cool you want to talk about that might be coming from Hoopball next year, or is this stuff we want to keep a little closer to the vest?
I mean, like, I guess I could toss this out. So we have this development channel that's, basically all of the web guys and the programmers. When they start asking for like big old data requests, like I need like height, weight, age, where somebody went to school, all that stuff, it's starting to lead toward player profile pages and statistics and all that good stuff. And that's what we would like to do is give you guys no need to go to a different website for, at least even the basic statistics and, from a player profile standpoint. So when I start seeing that stuff coming through the pipeline, I get excited. And, once that foundation is built, we're able to then start to get into the fantasy specific statistics that can really add value to fantasy owners. And that's where, my approach is, let's get a foundation that's kind of a basic foundation, and then we can kind of go from there. When we get into the stuff that, like, I've been just pinning these ideas up, like imagine the crazy person in like the basement that's got like the newspapers all over the wall. I got like fantasy strategy ideas on Post-it notes.
That's like that meme that's always goes around on Twitter of Charlie Day from Always Sunny when he's down in the basement trying to figure out the.
I wish that show didn't go off the rails. It went off the rails in like season 8 or 7.
Oh, it's totally nuts. It's totally nuts. But I still love Charlie Day. He's so good.
The scene that I'm thinking of in my head right now is when they show up in the wrestling ring as the Eagles. And they're flapping their wings. Anyway, sorry. They're getting plenty of rest right now. I think that they're going to look for rhythm in the last couple, say the last 8 games. And they could use their first round playoff matchup to get that. But I don't think that they're going to look at it that way. I think that they think that they're flawed. I think Steve Kerr is worried about this group. And I think that they don't want to play extra games in the first round at all. So I think there will be a ramp up period that we wouldn't have seen had these guys not taken this time off now.
Is James Harden going to get any rest?
In the past, he has fought rest. He has not gotten the MVP, yet. So I think he's going to go strong until the end of the year. And as far as the Rockets go, I think that, they're pretty much locked up. And there has been talk about rest coming out of Houston. I just know that James has fought that in the past. And so he's kind of a guy you can trust because he doesn't jump. He doesn't, there's guys that jump. There's like Joel Embiid's. There's players that are constantly hitting the ground, throwing their body around out there. That's not James. James is very low to the ground, and he's the one initiating contact. So I don't think they worry about him getting hurt as much as you would a player that has that tendency to fly around. I think he could play a lot of games. They've got 72, so 10 left. I would say the over-under on him is probably 7.5 games. Maybe 8.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go over. I bet he gets 1 day off. That might be it.
It's tough. Yeah, I know there was actual talk out of Houston about resting guys. But Chris Paul's kind of the guy that you worry about there. Trevor Ariza you worry about there.
They really should rest people. I don't believe that they will. Maybe he gets 2 games. I bet he doesn't play the last game of the regular season, and maybe there's one other one squeezed in between now and then. What do I do with Gary Harris, Aaron? I know that he's targeting an early week return next week, but they got 2 of their 4 games next week right on the front end, Monday and Tuesday. If he misses both of those, that goes from a good week to a pretty bad one.
It's tough, man. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in his short career, and I can't tell you not to use him. And you can't also, you got to look at his situation and think if there was ever a time for him to gut it out, it's going to be now. So
yeah,
I don't think you can really fade him. I mean, we'll learn a lot more next week, and in terms of like start sit decisions and weekly lineups, and check out the weekly lineup show for premium subscribers.
Yeah, check it out.
But I think he's got to play, and that's that's a tough one. I've got him in a league that I'm winning right now, and I'm just glad I got 5 million other good players, because I'd hate to be relying on him for anything serious right now.
Would you drop Hassan Whiteside? We talked about him a decent amount, but that was probably a part we didn't hit on.
I mean, I don't think so. No, I don't think that, that's where we're at with this just yet. I mean, I think that it could be close to that, but what I would like to see out of that whole situation is some additional reporting that might, shed some light on it before we go telling you guys to drop a second, third round guy that, could help you win your weekly matchup.
We do have a rate question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names. I think we can knock that out now, don't you? 5's not too crazy.
I'm good with it.
All right. Big Sauce, Nerlens Noel, Jonathan Isaac, Willie Hernan-Gomez, and Scal rest of season.
Okay, I think Scal's got to be on top of that list. I think Noel over Hernan-Gomez, even though there's been the DNP and, Hernan-Gomez might have that clear ramp. With Nerlens, what I've been doing is so if he's got a 3-game week, I'm calling it a 2-game week. If he's got a 4-game week, I'm calling it a 3 or even like a 2.5-game week. I'm factoring in those absences.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The only reason you're using him is you need steals and blocks, and percentages would be great. So that's where I'm at with that. And then so we had Scal, we had Willie Hernan-Gomez, we had Nerlens Noel slotted above him, and who are our other 2 guys?
Jonathan Isaac and Big Sauce.
Big Sauce is at the bottom of the list. I think that there's just too many question marks there. And then Isaac, I would probably slot Isaac. Look, if you need money counting stats, he's way better than Hernan-Gomez no matter what. So that's a needs issue, but I'll go ahead and I'll slot him above both Nerlens Noel and Willie Hernan-Gomez, just in general too. Just that potential for him to get out there and give you something like 15 points, 5 boards, and then a 111 is kind of hard to pass up.
All right, let's do a little somebody versus somebody game. We got 3 of those questions, and I'll slot them all in one after the other. Mo Harkless, DJ Augustine. Who do you like better?
Give me Mo.
Yeah, I'm on Team Mo in that one, too. I like seeing him succeed. Devin Harris versus Jeremy Lamb.
What?
It's in there. It's a question.
First of all, aren't you glad that we had you hold Jeremy Lamb?
Yeah, right on time, man. Right on time.
I'm telling you guys, man, that one feels good. I've been begging you guys to hang on, and if whether you're in a playoff format or you're in a regular old roto format, it's paid off equally. He's going to have a great rest of the season.
The last one was Bogdan Bogdanovic or Tomas Satoransky.
Oh, Bogies, he's struggled, with a little bit of a tankitis, and going to take a big hit. Now I'll go whoever the other guy is.
Bogey?
Yeah, I forgot what we were talking about.
What do I...
Bogey, well, here's the thing. Bogey has the potential to be great. It's just the Kings are tanking. So if he's not 100%, he could have a game off or 2 in the rest of the mix. But if I'm rating him as an asset on the floor, I'm going to give him top 75, top 100 kind of on the bottom end going forward for the rest of this. So, I mean, that's better than Satoransky.
What if I switched it to Bojan Bogdanovic instead of Bogdan?
Yeah, you can't count on Bojan.
That's what I
right
figured.
now for anything other than points and threes. And
this question didn't have a first name, so I didn't know which one it was. So I hit you with both. Nick Batum worth stashing? I actually think he's done for the year, but I'll ask you.
The name real quick, it kind of garbled out.
Oh yeah, Nick Batum, is he worth stashing?
I think he's done for the year. So no, I wouldn't be. Look, if you want to treat him as a reverse stash, where you're just hoping that the low likelihood of him coming back, that 10 to 20% chance, and you're saying, okay, I can have a top 50, top 75, or if you want to really rate him lowly, top 100 asset, I can have that. It's kind of like, do you stash him or do you stash like Big Sauce, or do you stash like, some player that's coming back, from injury or whatever? I don't think he's got a 10 to 20% chance of coming back and being good.
Jordan Bell sounds like he's going to get the starting nod. Does that bump him up for you in any capacity?
I think he's, somebody that when he's healthy, and when I say healthy, it means he's like on the floor, and when Draymond Green is out, I think you're almost guaranteed to get 16 minutes. That's all he needs to be good.
It's crazy.
He is a top 180 value in 13, 14 minutes per game. So it doesn't take a lot, and I think that in these situations, he should be in somebody's lineup tonight.
Is Valanciunas, was he one of the guys you're dropping in Toronto in a 2-game week?
Oh yeah. I mean, dropping or benching is basically kind of a roster decision, but right. Yeah, I don't think you're trusting him at all. You need somebody to be a top 40 guy to consider starting him in a 2-game week.
Gotcha. When do you pick up John Wall?
Right now. I mean, he's right. You're talking about a top 12 to 24 producer in 8 and 9 cat leagues respectively, and that doesn't come around very often. He should be owned in all formats.
What about Jaylen Brown, or do you leave him alone?
I think it's asking a lot for him to come back and be good, and at the same time, he might have fresh legs. So, I mean, as we get closer to... It's tough because his stat set is really just kind of garbage, and not garbage. Garbage is a little too rough, but he does not produce consistently across departments or categories. And if he returns Sunday, which seems like he will get a Kings team that cannot defend athletes at all. He might have a big game, but I'm more concerned of the ROI for the rest of the year. I'll rate him as a top 100 guy for the rest of the year pretty confidently, and if that can help you out, yes, I would go grab him.
Luke Bamute got hurt in the Rockets game yesterday. Does that move a guy like PJ Tucker into the window of opportunity here? Where does he fall?
He's had a couple windows of opportunity this year, and he hasn't been able to really capitalize on them. I'm not optimistic that he's going to be able to do that. Theoretically, he should be the guy that makes it happen. We've seen he's had maybe 5 of these this year, and he's never really been able to get up over the hump. So, and when you throw in the fact that, like, for head-to-head leagues, I don't think like this, but a lot of owners do. That the absence of any sort of poppy numbers like really works against him. He's not a great field goal percentage guy anyway, because all he does is take threes, and there's a lot to not like there. I'm trying to kind of rack my brain for like who could be a beneficiary, but it kind of feels like Eric Gordon is just gonna go nuts, score close to 30 per night. You do have Chris Paul who's banged up and could be resting for a little bit, but I mean, Gerald Green fits the mold of a player that goes off, for like 4 games during the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, he really does. Milos Teodosic, anything there? He's had like 1 good game, I think.
No, I don't think there's anything there. I mean, yeah, that's all I got for you there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Until somebody else gets hurt, I'm not compelled that he's going to step up.
Jordan Bell versus Willie Cauley-Stein.
Oh, Willie. Willie is such a random basketball player. I think that Willie could be great, and he could also be a top 100 guy. Here's the thing with Bell that's going to be hard is if guys are going in and out of the lineup, you just don't know which Bell you're going to get. If we knew that Bell was playing 25 minutes per game for the rest of the year, I think he'd be just phenomenal. Like, just top 75 easy, maybe top 50. I'm tempted to tell you to go for the upside in Jordan Bell. Willie Cauley-Stein is a tank risk, and he can disappear on a moment's notice. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to tell you to go Jordan Bell.
Ah, you animal. How do I know if I'm actually good at fantasy sports or just resourceful? I like that one. I know that's a funny question.
Fantasy sports is kind of about being resourceful.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there because I thought it was funny. Frankly, Charleston, if you're here watching this show, you're both. You're both.
Yeah, there you go.
Adam Wright says, I hadn't done a fantasy basketball league in over a decade, and thanks to Hoopball, I got a bye week after accumulating a, wait for it, 28-game lead over the second-place team.
Oh.
Thank you, Hoopball. You are most welcome, Adam. That's amazing. That is a bludgeoning.
That reminds me of that scene in Goodwood. Was it good? No, it was Rounders, where Matt Damon walks into the room and just knows what everybody has.
Yeah, that was basically what's going on in that dude's league. So I hope you won money. I hope there was money on that league. This is one looking down the line a tiny bit. Roberto says, if I make it through next week, what do I do with Paul George? Because they have a 2-game week after that. I think we may want to assess that as we get a little bit closer to it. So, Roberto, if you can come back and throw that question at us again next Friday, that might be a better time to look at that, or even the following one.
They might be playing for seeding there, so that might actually work out, because Paul George is a top 20 producer, and in 2 games you want to start that.
And usually if you're dealing with that 2-game week, that's the week and a half, so you should get 4 out of him in that stretch of your fan, which is still not good, because some teams go 6.
It depends on the league. Some of them break that up, and then there's an actual, well, if he's head-to-head, then it doesn't matter, because they'll include it or they just won't.
Right. So either it's just over or it's not. Right,
in a roto league, some sites go all 1.5 week. Like ESPN does 1.5 week, and then others will have that little tiny week separately.
Why doesn't Anthony Davis shave his unibrow? I think that's part of his branding at this point. And finally, Kyle Anderson. Can he maintain any value going forward? He's slowed down a little bit lately.
My God. I don't think when first of all, Kawhi Leonard is the worst fantasy pick of all time. I can't believe that nonsense is still going. Players only meeting, which was then denied by the players. Well, here's what happened is Woj put his own spin on it, and that's, for a guy that breaks every story in the NBA, or half of them now that he trained his protege. Danny Green pushed back heavily that there was a heated discussion on that whole thing, but the fact that there was a discussion at all kind of speaks to the problem here in San Antonio. And this, at least, hearing this report, pardon me, is that there's this like, oh, I think I'm going to go, oh, I'm not going to go. And it's Kawhi basically just sort of stringing everybody along. I feel way less terrible about my teams that have Kawhi on it. Like, this is kind of unprecedented. We haven't seen something like this in a long while. So to answer your question, Kyle Anderson could be valuable for the rest of the season. Like, nobody thought it would get to this point. When Manu Ginobili's out there getting quoted saying, we fell for it again, and that's like, he's talking like a guy that has no idea what Kawhi Leonard is going to do. So we're getting close to the point where it's like almost pointless to bring him back in. Though, if you're the Spurs and he hasn't played a regular season game and he's like, I can play, you kind of got to at least think about it. We'll see if somebody like Greg Popovich or the organization decides to take a principled stand on letting him come back and play. But Kyle Anderson's going to be fine. I don't think you could drop him. All right, that's it. Knocked him out. Questions and all of Dan's locations du jour. Mr. Aaron Bruski, the architect of hoop-ball.com. Your work here is done. Thank you, my good man. Thank you, guys, and you all have a great weekend, and good luck with your fantasy teams. Yeah, hopefully we'll see as many of you as possible starting next week. Of course, Fantasy NBA Today returns on Monday.
with a streaming preview and a reverse chronological lightning round. Brew will be back for premium subscribers with the Waiver Wire show Sunday evening Pacific time, early evening Pacific time. He is at Aaron Bruski on Twitter, although if you're watching us live on YouTube, you could see that little handle. It's right there on the old screeny Dean, the old computer TV. Mine is too, at Dan Besbris. Certainly follow at Hoopball Fantasy and at Hoopball Tweets if you want to see what's going on at hoop-ball.com. You can just go there, type it in. It's a web link. We have a website. It does that stuff. Thank you to Scott Douglas for teaching me how to do this stuff. I think it got better as the show went on, and if you're listening after the fact, join us next Friday on YouTube. We only have a couple more of these before the offseason hits, folks, and then we don't go live on Fridays for a little bit. So thank you to everybody. I'll throw that in every week here until we're done for the season. Thanks to everybody in the chat room that continues to make this a fun and productive Friday show. For Aaron, I'm Dan. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.